Hello farmers and aspiring farmers. Thank you for tuning into yet another informative edition of your program. This is Agricultural New Directions Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030, and my name is Wazanai Manyore. Now we are in the summer cropping season of our country as Zimbabweans, and we are going to be looking at the vegetables that you can produce as a farmer when it comes to summer, because we'll be receiving rainfall, and at the same time our heat units will be perfect for the production of most vegetables. At this point in time, we're going to be looking at beetroot production, and to discuss this and more, I've taken the liberty of inviting Clement Mcharedze. He is a seasoned agronomist working with Sidco right here in Zimbabwe. Clement, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Wazanai. How are you, farmers?
Yes. As we get into our discussion, Clement, you'd find that as Zimbabweans, as farmers, we do have a vegetable calendar which speaks to when we can produce which kind of vegetable at what time. Now, in this season, we are standing within a field where you have established beetroot. Can you maybe give us a rough outline, a brief introduction of beetroot? Which family does it fall under, and why is it produced during this time of the year?
Thank you very much. Beetroot is a very good crop. That is, we eat the root part of the beetroot, and it is grown from January right up to December, but mainly it's done usually from August going into deep summer. But it does well even in winter, reason being that it grows the roots. That's what we need. So it's a very good crop that every farmer can actually grow, and it has a consistent demand on the market, even though the demand is not as high as that if we compare with other crops, talk of cabbage and other lines, but it is a constant demand for beetroot on the market.
Okay. Now, Clement, you would find that you mentioned that we consume the tuber, we consume the bulb that is produced underneath. Before I go on to talk about techniques of producing it in terms of maybe is it ridges, is it beds, I want us to talk about the plant population per hectare. Per hectare, how many bulbs are you looking to produce if done properly? And also, what would you recommend as the mode of production? Is it ridges, is it beds, is it just plain field? What is it like?
Yes, with beetroot, let's start with our plant population. The higher the better, but there's optimal plant population that we are looking at. As a minimum, we are talking of 55 to 60,000 plants that you can have per hectare, but it can stretch up to 100,000 plants that you can have on a hectare. So the plant population, you can actually come back to the spacing where we are talking of 20 to 30 centimeters as for your interrow, and as for your in-row from one tuber to the next, we are talking of 5 to 10 centimeters depending with bulb size that you need. Remember, the spacing that you use, it also determines the size of tuber that you ultimately get at the end of the day.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, as we move on, Clement, I would also want you to highlight and touch mainly on that issue that speaks to profitability. Most of our Zimbabwean farmers, when they are watching this program, they want to know days to maturity. When do you establish this beetroot, and when can you expect to start harvesting? You'd find that these two are correlated. You look at how much you are going to be spending within a period of time up to when you will be harvesting, so that you take it to the market and maybe get profits, or even in some instances you look where you'll be like, am I going to get losses? Is it lucrative? Is it sustainable? So in terms of days to maturity from planting, what are we looking at? Do you even transplant? What is it like?
Yeah, beetroot, you can either plant it conventionally, where we are saying you come in and sow your seeds in situ, it grows, or you can actually transplant, where you do your nurseries and after 30 days you come in and transplant. So from transplanting, or from if you establish it in situ, we are saying 75 to 80 days you have your first harvest. They will be ready for the market. And for production purposes, there are some things that you cannot correct. Once you do it as a mistake, you can never correct it. I talk of the fertilizer application rates. Of course, we normally recommend farmers to do the soil test, the analysis, so that they know the correct fertilizer to apply. However, smart men, we now say there's a rough rule thumb that we can say 500 to 600 kgs of compound seed that you use at planting, then come in with 150 kgs of ammonium nitrate at 2 to 4 weeks, and possibly another dose 6 to 8 weeks of potassium nitrate. This is done now. For potassium nitrate, we now want to have a beautiful bulb that we have at the end of the day. And for storage, beetroot is not as perishable as other lines that you can think of.
Yes.
So when you harvest it, you can actually keep it in your storeroom for a long, say 2 to 3 months under storage, under good conditions. So it's a very lucrative crop to grow. Remember, it matures in 80 days. That is just 2 to 3 months. You'll be going to the market with your crop.
Finally, as we close this segment, Clemens, you spoke of the bulb size, which you said that it has various factors that contribute to either you are getting a huge bulb or a smaller bulb. And also you will be looking at what the market expects. Is it looking for big bulbs or smaller bulbs? Just as a rule of thumb to our audience that is watching, can you talk to them in terms of the bulb size? What does it entail when you say you are going to be determining the size of the bulb?
For the size of the bulb to be attractive, your length preparation, it has to be well done. We need a fine-tooth length. Then size is also a function of spacing that you use, especially on the in-row. It has to be within 5 to 10 centimeters so that you have an average bulb size that ranges from 200 to 350 grams per each bulb that you get. Because if they become too big, it also becomes a challenge when you're trying to sell. It actually mishappen. The bulb, it won't be as attractive to the customer. So you need a bulb size that is on average size that ranges from 250 to 300 grams. Then the other aspect that you need to do when you're coming up with the bulb size, it has to do with nutrition. The fertilizer, it does not necessarily have to be too much for you to have a big bulb size, because it actually may have some holes inside. So you have to apply a adequate fertilizer that is needed, and the correct fertilizers. Remember, I said compound C, you need your ammonium nitrate and your potassium nitrate. That's what now determines the size of the bulb.
Okay, thank you so much, Clemens, for such a detailed presentation. On that note, viewers, we're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the second segment. Stay tuned. Thank you, Zimbabwe, for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, in support of Vision 2030. We are here in the second segment of your program, where we are looking at beetroot production. And I've taken the liberty of inviting a seasoned vegetable agronomist, Clemens Muchadeze. Now, viewers, we encourage you to be a part of these conversations. Feel free to get in touch with the producer, Wadzanai Manyore. It's on 0772-807-506. Alternatively, you can like our Facebook page, Agribusiness with Wadzanai. Make a follow-up on this episode and more, and leave your comments and suggestions. They are most welcome to us. On YouTube, it's Agribusiness with Wadzanai. We are also now available on Twitter, now known as X. It's at Agribusiness 110. This is where most of the discussions will be taking place. Now we are here in the second segment. We are going to be taking it a gear up, looking at the prerequisites of what it takes for you to be a beetroot farmer here in Zimbabwe. Clemens, we are here in the second segment. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, Wadza.
Yes. We are holding these beautiful bulbs that have been produced properly. They look attractive to the eye, and even the consumer would definitely want to purchase this. Now, to get to this point, there are certain things and tactics and strategies that you need to put in place in terms of inputs, your general management skills, to ensure that you are being sustainable in your venture. Clemens, I want us to look at irrigation, the modes of irrigation, and even the water quantities that are expected so that you produce a very beautiful crop such as this one we are holding today.
Thank you very much, Wadza. For you to have such a beautiful bulbs like these ones, it starts actually with the soil. It does not have to be rocky. It has to be fine-tooth land. Then the other aspect, it has to do with the clay content of your soil. It has to be loamy soil, sand loamy, for you to have beautiful bulbs like this. Then as for the water that you need for the cropping cycle, we are looking at between 550 to 600 mils of water that you need. However, soils, they differ from one land to the next. So you normally work with the type of soil that you have and the type of irrigation that you normally have at your farm. So overhead, it does well. Drip, it does well, even flooding. As long as you have the quantity and good quality of water in that field, you have a very good crop at the end of the season.
Now, irrigation generally comes with insect pests and diseases. When you apply your water, you are also creating a conducive environment for insect pests and even diseases to thrive. You mentioned flood irrigation. You also mentioned overhead, which can also aid in the quick spread of diseases. Speaking of pests and diseases, what could be those that you'd want to cite today and maybe their control, those chemicals that are most maybe commonly used when it comes to beetroot production?
I'll start with from day one, where you start seeing your beetroot coming out. Suppose you've done it in situ. When it's coming out, there's issues to do with damping off. You need to come in now with the fungicides, talk of those with azoxstrobin and difenoconazole. Then cutworm. We normally use the likes of lambda, because normally cutworm, it destroys when your crop is actually coming out.
Yes.
Then when you grow it during summer, like now, you normally have issues to do with aphids. So you need to come in now and again and spray. But as for diseases, there's not much except for damping off. That's major trouble that we normally have. But as for blights, they are not much of a problem.
Okay, now Clement, you would find that most of these farmers that are producing their beetroot here in Zimbabwe, some might be doing them in small patches, or even, as the permanent secretary was talking to us today, even in front of your veranda. You can even have a small patch of land that you are producing your beetroot in. Is it possible for a Zimbabwean farmer, instead of applying, some want to go organic? Okay. They are saying that we want to reduce the use of synthetic fertilizers or chemicals. Is it possible for a Zimbabwean farmer to use humus or to use manure instead of fertilizer? And what would you recommend when it comes to the use of manure? We understand that sometimes manure can be a good environment for insect pests and diseases. What could be your recommendations, your sentiments to those farmers that are likely to incline to the use of manure, be it tobacco or residue or cow dung or chicken manure? What would you want to say to them today?
I would say use of manure is actually a good thing to do. Farmers should actually be pro-organic in every production that they do. However, when you're producing especially a root crop, where you'll be harvesting a root crop like this one, would say, suppose you want to produce your beetroot next season, it is best you apply your manure right now, so that when you now come in with your beetroot in the next season, there will be no air pockets in the ground. Okay. And your beetroot will come out as smooth as you can see. It won't have too much hairs on the bulb. So for you to have a clean, good crop, your soil should be free of uncomposed matter. Okay. So it's actually very good. We encourage farmers to do so, because as they are applying more manure, they are actually enriching the soil and eating healthy. Remember, this beetroot is actually eaten for different reasons, either for health reasons. It actually reduces quite a number of ailments, talk of inflammation and other things. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Clements, for that. Now, as we round off this segment, to a first-time farmer, someone who's watching, maybe at Wamoyo, he also wants to get into beetroot production. When it comes to you are headed towards harvesting, what are some of the signs that you look at? In onion production, I understand that when we once did an episode together, you spoke of these the leaves maybe falling off or maybe just being inclined to the ground. What are some of the signs in beetroot production that you look at and say, you know what, these are ready to pull out?
The indices that we check on, to start with, it is the days to maturity. Normally they mature in 75 to 80 days. So as a farmer, you should have your record. You should know that I transplanted this some 70 days ago. It should be ready, and you can actually pull and see. Then the other thing, the leaves. If you see your leaves getting a bit much older and no new leaves coming out as vibrant as they used to be, as you can see this field here, we don't have much of new leaves that are coming. That shows that you have actually reached senescence. You can actually come and uproot your crop. And remember, you don't have to uproot it all at once. Suppose you want to sell slowly onto your market, you can actually keep it in the field, but not for too long.
Okay, thank you so much, Clements, for that. That was very detailed. On that note, viewers, we've come to the end of the second segment. We're going to go on a short commercial break. We'll be right back with this and more in the third and final segment. Stay tuned. Today we are looking at beetroot production. Thank you viewers for staying tuned to Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness in support of Vision 2030. We are now here in the third and final segment of your program, where we are emphasizing on how you can produce beetroot for a living, how you can earn a living off of beetroot production. Clemens, we are here in the third and final segment. Welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Earlier on in the first segment, you touched briefly on storage, where you say that after harvesting your beetroot, it has a longer shelf life. Can you talk to us in terms of those storage conditions that are conducive and those that are good and support a longer shelf life for your beetroot after harvesting them? And also, do you leave the leaves on after harvesting? How do you do it? Do you just throw them scattered, or you have to do it systematically like what you do in onions? You maybe tie them in bunches. What is it like in beetroot production? And also the shelf life after harvesting and placing them in storage. What are we looking at in terms of days before sending them off to the market?
Yes, what we do, we start from the day of harvesting. When you're harvesting this crop, you have to make sure that there are no bruises on the skin, because normally if you create some bruises when harvesting, that's where we start to have infection getting into your bulb. So when you harvest, you have to remove these leaves here, because normally if you don't remove them, they will be taking moisture from the bulb going onto the leaves, so it may take longer for this thing to dry. Okay. So when this thing eventually dries, it will be actually shrinking the bulb
in size.
Yeah, so you actually cut it off and leave the bulb as clean as it is. Then you put it in a well ventilated room, dry, well ventilated room. Okay. Because we need that ventilation to make sure that there are no infections that are getting into okay. here. Then as for storage, you can actually keep this for the next 2 to 3 months under good temperatures, talk of 20 to 25 Celsius degrees room temperature. You can store your beetroot that longer.
Clemens, you'd find that this final segment, this third segment, we normally reserve it for issues surrounding marketing. Now, what does the market, those that consume beetroot, be it supermarkets, be it individuals, be it maybe schools or gatherings, what do they expect when purchasing beetroot from a farmer? Are they looking for big bulbs in terms of packaging? How do you package your beetroot? What are they looking for? Your word of advice to the farmers that are watching. Market iri kuda chika na ishida beetroot. Iri kudari masaga ere, zvinenge zvakarongedzwa sei?
On the market side, for supermarkets, they normally, some, they panit it, so they don't need too big bulbs. And for those that are bunched, you can actually have bulb size that ranges from 250 to 300 grams. So this is the normal size that we are talking of, 200 to 300 grams bulb size. That's what the market needs. And it does not necessarily have to be too big. Remember, they don't like, they like to cut your beetroot and
finish it off the very same day.
No, yeah. So and for salads, you remember, it's normally used for salads. So normally it's just needed in smaller quantities. That's also see that it's needed on the market, but not in high numbers, but very constant. Okay. The numbers that are demanded, yes.
Now, Clemens, in terms of varieties, what are some of those varieties that you would want to outline today? In every cropping venture, we have varieties. In animal production, we have breeds. What are some of those varieties that are conducive for Zimbabwean farmers that you'd want to encourage them to undertake?
So the current varieties on the market include the Dark Detroit. It's a very good beetroot. This is the Dark Detroit that I'm holding here. It will give you a smooth bulb that you can see. It matures very early, in 75 to 90 to 80 days. You're already going for the market, and it has a long shelf life where we are talking of 2 to 3 months under good management, well ventilated, dry storeroom. So that's what you can do, and you can actually make money out of your beetroot.
Okay, Clemens, I want you to encourage a local farmer that is looking to get into beetroot production. We have the youth who are talking of unemployment, but here is a venture that you can start making money right after maybe 80 days and so forth. We're also talking of women empowerment, where we are saying women should also have projects, those that they undertake to sustain their livelihoods. In terms of your words of encouragement, your word of advice, your sentiments when it comes to beetroot production, what are those key fundamentals that you'd want to highlight for a first-time beetroot farmer?
First-time beetroot farmer, I would say nutrition, it has to be on point. Your spraying program, it has to be on point. Then, as for the market, you remember in Bulawayo, the Matebeleland side, beetroot is never enough. There's insatiable demand for beetroot. So for those young farmers, for those who want to venture into beetroot production, you should have market first. But I've already highlighted there's a great market in Matebeleland where you can actually go and start do your market survey and go and supply. So that's what I can say. It's also a very easy crop. It does not have many pests or diseases that you can really be worried of. It's a very easy. It's a good, what I would say, it's a easy landing page for first-time farmers. So let's come and get this black Detroit and to advise you how to grow it and to have a successful season.
At times, farmers tend to shy away from their agronomists. Socially, what would you want to say in terms of having a good working relationship between farmers and agronomists? We also now do have the internet, whereby a farmer can just go on Google and maybe Google how to produce beetroot. But we are in Zimbabwe. It might not be the same as producing beetroot maybe in the United States. Can you talk to our audience there at home in terms of having a good working relationship between an agronomist and a farmer, of especially the first-time farmers who want to venture into horticulture production?
Yes, very true. I would advise farmers to work very, very, very closely with the agronomist, be it local or someone who will be coming from a different region. Reason being that agronomists, they will detect what will be happening, what is coming on to their crop right at that moment, and advise on the correct measures to take. Now, yes, you can do Google and other things, but Google may not detect pests in your field, may not detect the source that will be happening right on your field. However, farmers, we encourage you to work with your agronomists. They will help you all the way. Even the market, they can actually link you. I've just highlighted there's a market for beetroot in Matebeleland. If you were a farmer just looking for that, you may actually not get that information. So I advise you farmers to work with your agronomists for bumper harvest at the end of the season and good advice.
Okay, Clemens, as we close, we are in the summer cropping season. And we also have farmers, apart from those that are into field crops production, we also have horticultural farmers. Your parting words, your word of advice to those farmers that are into horticultural production. We are in this season where we are experiencing the effects of the El Nino induced drought. But still in this environment, we do have horticultural farmers, we do have horticultural producers. Your word of advice to them under these conditions that are very stringent and tight, that do not support production fully. Your word of advice to them as we close.
I would say this season, yes, it's a challenging season, but to horticulture farmers, already they've got water, some have got boreholes. So it's a blessing and a disguise somehow. But what you have to know is to know what to produce. I would advise farmers to produce this beetroot that we are holding here. You can actually eat this and fill your gut. You'll be okay. So I would advise you also to grow things like butternut, because butternut, it is starch. So sugar beets. So all those crops that you can grow under 100 days, that's what you can actually do and make money out of them, because you have got shorter life cycles for each cropping cycle. You'll be very short and you can make money out of it. And remember, with El Nino, there won't be any much rains that we'll be receiving. So even if you grow tomato, you may not have much challenge during this summer season. So let's grow these horticultural crops and make money at the end of the day.
Thank you so much, Clemens, for taking your time to appear on Agricultural New Directions, Agribusiness, in support of Vision 2030. It was a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you very much.
On that note, viewers, we've come to the end of this episode. It was a pleasure having you with us today, and I understand that you were taking notes on beetroot production. From me, your host was Zanai Manyore. I'm also on Instagram. It's W Manyore, and the crew behind the scenes. Have yourselves a fabulous evening. Thank you for watching.